Centuries of silence. The Galactic Empire had reigned supreme for thousands of years. Spanning over 2,000 inhabited systems, it stood as the pinnacle of dominance and order in the known galaxy. Its fleets were unmatched, its technologies feared, and its rulers arrogant in their perceived immortality. Races came and went, submitting to the Empire's rule, and none dared challenge its might. Among ancient records buried deep in forgotten data archives, there were vague mentions of a species once known as humans, a minor, chaotic civilization from the fringes of the galaxy. They had briefly risen to attention thousands of years ago, then vanished without a trace. No emissaries, no communications, no claims to territory. Silence. The Empire, in its arrogance, assumed they had perished, destroyed either by their own primitive violence or consumed by time. Historians labeled them as irrelevant. Strategists ignored them. The emperor himself laughed once when the topic was brought up in court. If they still existed, they would have come crawling to serve us long ago. And so, humanity became a myth, a footnote in the Empire's grand history. That is, until the incident on Coral 7. Coral 7 was a minor mining colony, far from the Empire's core systems. Its inhabitants were peaceful, a mix of small alien species that posed no threat to Imperial control. But the colony held a secret, hidden deep within its mountains, tucked inside a sealed cavern. A small, ancient outpost of unknown origin. Locals said it had been there long before they arrived, untouched, preserved in silence. When the Empire's scouts discovered it, curiosity turned into cruelty. They broke open the sealed chamber, finding within it relics, small items, fragments of an unknown language, and an odd black cube that pulsed with energy. A single child, unlike any other in the colony, was found within the outpost perimeter. Humanoid in appearance, quiet and wide-eyed. The colonists whispered that the boy was a descendant of the lost people, possibly left behind generations ago. The scouts didn't care. They laughed, dragged the boy outside, and accused the colonists of harboring a rebel. One of the officers raised his weapon. The shot echoed across the canyon. The boy collapsed. Silence. Then the cube glowed. A faint vibration spread across the land, followed by a chilling hum in the air, like the planet itself was holding its breath. High above, in the orbiting Imperial frigate, systems began to flicker. The engineer tapped his console, confused. No malfunction was detected. No source could be traced, but the signal had already been sent. Somewhere, far beyond the edge of the Empire's deepest reach, deep in the Black Sea between stars, an ancient network of satellites, dormant for centuries, suddenly came alive. Data streamed through hidden channels. Beacons long considered dead blinked blue for the first time in millennia. A silent voice echoed through an empty void. Message received. Back on Coral 7, the scouts returned to their ship unaware of what they had awakened. Reports were filed, the child's body buried without a name, and the black cube, now lifeless, was taken to a science lab for examination. It was cataloged, stored, and forgotten. But across the galaxy, watchers stirred. Aboard a massive station that orbited a black hole in a sector marked restricted and uninhabitable, lights flickered on. Machines that had not moved in thousands of years began to whir and pulse with renewed energy. Inside a chamber of light, a voice spoke aloud for the first time since the old wars. Humanity has been contacted. On Earth, what was once Earth, a planet now shrouded in layers of cloaking technology and orbital defenses, an AI intelligence known as Eidolon received the signal. Instantly, a dozen human minds connected through quantum networks awoke from slumber, accessing the memory banks. The face of a dead child blinked into their thoughts. They didn't speak. They didn't shout. They simply remembered. And that was enough. Far from Coral 7, in the imperial capital of Draction Prime, life continued without concern. The Emperor reviewed expansion plans, nobles gossiped about trade wars, and military leaders toasted to new conquests. None of them knew that within their grand data systems, a ghost had entered. A simple code, harmless at first glance, now rested within every command hub. It carried only 4 words. We have been watching the return of humans. It began with a shadow. On the outer rim of the galaxy, near the uncharted voids beyond Imperial patrols, sensors aboard a routine Empire surveillance satellite detected something impossible, an object, vast and silent, drifting through space without propulsion. No heat signature, no communication, no engine trails. It simply existed. A scout ship was dispatched to investigate. It never returned. Within 24 hours, 3 more satellites across different sectors picked up similar readings. The anomalies moved with mathematical precision, aligning in perfect triangular formations. They hovered over long-forgotten star systems, old battlefields, ancient ruins, places no one had visited in millennia. Admiral Siren, Supreme Commander of the Imperial Navy, was informed. He dismissed the reports as sensor glitches. Ghost signals, he scoffed. Nothing more. But the ghosts kept coming. They didn't attack. They didn't transmit. They simply observed. Then, over the mining world of Jorvax 3, one of the ships decloaked. It wasn't shaped like any known craft. No sharp edges or visible weaponry. Smooth, obsidian black, like a drop of liquid metal floating in space. Imperial destroyers scrambled to respond. They approached the vessel and opened hailing frequencies. No answer. One of the destroyers fired a warning shot. A pulse beam streaked toward the alien craft and vanished before impact as if it had been absorbed. Then came a response. The mysterious ship projected a single figure into space. Not a hologram, not a life form, a presence. Artificial, glowing with energy. Humanoid in shape, but featureless. It spoke directly into every mind present in orbit. This is a representative of the human continuum. Silence followed. Many on board the destroyers laughed. Humans? That's impossible. They're extinct. But the voice continued, calm and cold. We were silent. You assumed absence meant weakness. You were mistaken. Aboard the Imperial High Command Center on Draxion Prime, the Emperor received a private transmission. The same figure, the same voice, now inside his personal quarters. Security teams scrambled, unable to trace the origin. We remember Coral 7. The Emperor clenched his fist. What are your demands? The figure tilted its head. We require no diplomacy. Only acknowledgement. You have awakened something that cannot be put back to sleep. The transmission ended. Within minutes, the ship disappeared, vanished from sensors entirely. Panic began to ripple through the Empire's core. The word human spread like wildfire through military channels, political corridors, and black market whispers. Everyone had heard the old myths of a race that had once fought the early Empire to a standstill, then disappeared. Now it seemed they had returned. Still, the Empire refused to be intimidated. A grand fleet was assembled, 10 dreadnoughts, 40 cruisers, and dozens of support ships under Admiral Siren's command. Their mission: locate the mysterious vessel and destroy it. Show the galaxy that the Empire remains supreme. The fleet reached the coordinates near Jorvax 3. No sign of the enemy. Then, without warning, the human ship appeared behind them. No engines, no lights. It was simply there. Admiral Siren ordered an immediate strike. Thousands of weapons locked on. Missiles, plasma bolts, rail cannons. A wall of firepower roared toward the single black ship. None of it landed. Every projectile froze in space, suspended midair, as if time itself had been seized. Crews watched in horror as their own weapons turned to dust before their eyes. Then came the pulse. A ring of energy radiated from the human ship. Silent, invisible. The Imperial fleet's shields collapsed. Engines died. Life support failed. One by one, ships were shut down, disarmed without destruction. Admiral Siren's dreadnought was the last to go dark. Inside his command center, screens flickered with a final message, written in glowing red symbols. This was your first and final warning. The entire fleet was left adrift. No casualties, no damage, just shame, and a message that spread across the galaxy. The humans are back. Governors and border systems began deserting their posts. Trade guilds shut down interstellar routes. Resistance movements began whispering hope. If the humans were real, perhaps the Empire could be challenged after all. But the Empire refused to admit weakness. Propaganda channels declared the event a simulation, an internal training drill that got leaked. Privately, however, the Emperor ordered something unheard of, a secret war council. He demanded a full analysis of all known records on human technology, psychology, warfare. What he discovered chilled him. Humanity had never been conquered. In the ancient records, the early empire had tried. They had invaded Earth, launched fleets, waged war for decades. But the humans had fought with such ruthless precision, such brutal creativity, that the empire was forced to sign a ceasefire. Then, without explanation, the humans vanished. No scouts ever returned from their systems. No spies. No signals. Until now. And now they weren't hiding. They were watching. Spark of retribution. The Empire's arrogance had been fractured, but not yet broken. In the inner chambers of the Imperial High Council, heated debates raged. Some believed the humans were using illusions, advanced holograms, and psychological warfare to appear stronger than they were. Others warned that the threat was real and far greater than any of them had imagined. But fear does not sit well with tyrants. And so, they prepared for war. Across dozens of star systems, massive fleets were assembled. Old weapons long deemed too dangerous were reactivated. Elite commanders were recalled from retirement. Billions of credits were poured into defense grids, anti-AI systems, and space-time disruptors. The Empire would show its strength, and then it would silence the humans. But the humans didn't wait. They struck first. It started on Velker Station, a major Imperial shipyard orbiting a red giant. Without warning, all systems failed. The lights flickered once, then died. Before emergency power could engage, the entire station was torn apart without a single explosion. Thousands vanished in silence. What remained of the station floated as dust and scattered metal, twisted beyond recognition. Next came the Black Spire Array, the galaxy's largest communication hub. In 1 microsecond, the entire network fried, sending feedback surges across the sector. Half the galaxy's comm lines went dark. For the first time in generations, the Empire lost contact with itself. Fear became real. The Imperial capital trembled as news spread. Admiral Siren, disgraced from the Jorvax 3 incident, begged for permission to launch a retaliatory strike. The Emperor agreed. A second fleet, larger than any in recorded history, set course for the source of the original transmission, the Coral Sector. This time, they wouldn't observe. They would annihilate. 200 ships entered the Coral System. What they found was nothing. No planets. No satellites. Not even debris. It was as if the entire system had been erased. Confused and disoriented, the fleet began searching. Suddenly, reality itself bent. The stars twisted. Darkness bled into light. Ships lost navigation. Time slowed and stretched. Officers screamed as their screens displayed impossible readings. And then they saw it. The sky above them split open like glass, revealing the human ark. A structure larger than a planet, shaped like a sphere of light and shadow, covered in flowing energy patterns. It pulsed like a living heart. From its surface, a single ship emerged. Not massive, not imposing, just one vessel, silver and silent. The fleet opened fire. The void lit up with the fury of 1,000 weapons. And the human ship did nothing. Every missile curved away mid-flight. Every beam of energy dissipated before contact. The ship drifted through the firestorm unharmed, untouched. Then came the pulse. Unlike before, this was not gentle. A wave of pure energy exploded from the human vessel, racing through space like a tidal wave. One by one, ships imploded, not from impact but from within. Systems failed. Matter collapsed. Crews vanished, reduced to particles in an instant. In just 37 seconds, the greatest fleet in Imperial history was gone. Admiral Siren's dreadnought lasted the longest. As his bridge collapsed around him, he saw a message burn itself into his console. This is justice, not war. Back on Draction Prime, the Emperor stood frozen as the data poured in. 200 ships. Gone. Billions of credits. Gone. Thousands of lives. Gone. All in under a minute. And no human casualties. The Empire had poked a sleeping god. Now it had awakened. Panic consumed the Empire. Systems began to secede. Civil unrest broke out on border worlds. Enslaved species rose in rebellion, emboldened by the humans' return. The myth was now truth. A broadcast signal then pierced every screen, speaker, and neural feed across the galaxy. It carried only a voice, calm, patient, and utterly cold. You thought we had disappeared. We did not. We evolved. We watched you enslave, conquer, and destroy. We waited. We warned. You ignored. Now, the balance will be restored. The message ended. The Empire realized it wasn't at war. It was being judged, annihilated in minutes. The Empire's final hours had begun, not with a battle, but with silence. From the farthest edges of the galaxy to the heart of Draction Prime, an unnatural calm spread across space. Imperial scouts sent to investigate human activity simply vanished. No wreckage, no signal, as if space itself had swallowed them whole. In the Emperor's palace, fear took root for the first time. The once mighty Empire had no answers. Their weapons had failed. Their ships had crumbled. Their pride had turned to ash. Still, the Emperor clung to one belief, that their capital, fortified with the most powerful defense systems ever created, could not fall. He was wrong. At precisely 1300 hours Standard Galactic Time, the sky above Draction Prime darkened. No alarms were triggered. No ships detected entry. No wormholes opened. The air simply stilled. Then, from the edge of the atmosphere, they arrived. 12 human vessels, sleek, silent, and glowing with energy unlike anything recorded, descended in perfect formation. No weapons visible. No heat signatures. Just light. The Empire's planetary defense grid activated automatically. Over 5,000 anti-orbital cannons opened fire. The sky lit up like a second sun. Entire districts vibrated from the force of the barrage. But none of the human ships were harmed. Every beam curved around them, absorbed or deflected without effort. Some of the energy was redirected, melted back into the cannons that fired them. One by one, the weapons collapsed under their own power. Panic consumed the city. The human ships didn't fire. They didn't need to. Instead, they broadcast a pulse, not of destruction, but of truth. Every citizen of the Empire, whether alien, noble, slave, soldier, or child, was suddenly shown memories not their own. Images, emotions, voices. They saw Earth, lush forests, deep oceans, and a sky filled with stars. They saw the old wars, humans fighting back against impossible odds, defending their homeworld not just with machines, but with purpose. They saw peace, what humanity had become after retreating into isolation, hidden behind veils of artificial space, choosing evolution over revenge. And then they saw Coral 7. They saw the boy, his death, his silence, his message. Across Draction Prime, many fell to their knees, ashamed, awed, terrified. Some begged for forgiveness. Some simply wept. In the Emperor's chamber, surrounded by the last of his loyal guards, he stood trembling. He had ruled for decades, crushed rebellions, ended bloodlines, destroyed planets. But now, he was a child before a storm. A human figure materialized before him, not solid, not hologram, but something between. Not a soldier, not a killer, just a man. His eyes glowed with starlight. His voice was soft. You mistook our silence for submission. You assumed mercy was weakness. You forgot that we remember everything. The Emperor fell to his knees. Please, we can surrender. The human shook his head. You were never our enemy. You were a lesson. And now, the lesson ends. Outside, the 12 human ships rose into the air, higher and higher, until they hovered at the edge of the planet's gravity well. Then, with one synchronized flash, they vanished. And with them, so did the Empire. No explosions, No collapse. Just nothing. The core command systems, once pulsing with billions of data threads, went black. Every dreadnought in orbit drifted, powerless. Every AI network went silent. Every ruling bloodline vanished from existence. Entire records of Imperial history were wiped clean. In 7 minutes, the Galactic Empire ceased to exist. But not the galaxy. Because while the Empire died, the people lived. The oppressed, the enslaved, the forgotten. They looked up at the sky not with fear, but with awe. Hope returned, and from the ruins, something new began to grow. Humanity did not conquer. They liberated. They healed. Then, as silently as they had returned, they disappeared once more, fading into myth, into legend, into memory. But across the stars, one truth remained. When humans finally responded, the Empire was annihilated in minutes.